The Tiger Cats defense seemed to be exploitable on the first drive, but then settled in against the Stampeders. Now, I know it seemed like that it was lopsided heading into the second half, but they were more or less a victim of circumstance. I think that they made good decisions, just didn't go so well, among other things. But the offense is functional, but please don't take that as a bad thing because it's a solid base for the future. Functional is good. You can build off of it, right? Now, I personally want to see more red zone success. I kind of like how the Tiger Cats control the ball and don't get too high or low. However, being a stable team is not good enough when there is a talent gap like there was between them and the lowly Stampeders. I'm not really that impressed with Calgary, so this does not bode well for this season in Hamilton. But the Tiger Cats came back in the fourth after a kickoff return touchdown and showed some fight thereafter. Like, they really were getting after it. The Tiger Cats are probably the most mysterious team I watched during this cram session. And I watched and evaluated 8 teams out of 9. I need to look at the Edmonton Elks, for instance, still. The only gap in my analysis is the measurables, the height, weight, the wingspan, things that are the tangibles that create success, the 40 time and all of that. I evaluated their play on the field, but I want to have a better idea of how a receiver can exploit a defensive back because that is second order analysis. I still think that this is good analysis, but we'll see. In any case, let's move on. The Roughriders disappointed me because I assumed that their defense would have performed better week 1 given their 2024 season performance. I thought that their legendary quarterback would have been more in sync with his offense. The belief that the Roughriders have talent, but they're sleepwalking, and will that continue as they run into a tiger's paw, perhaps? Let's dive into some of their player performances to get a better gist of Saskatchewan's odds. Trevor Harris may not have been electrifying as one could have hoped. However, he did turn into a good performance. I mean, you just look at the numbers. I was less impressed in terms of the subjectivity of watching the game and evaluating them there, but look at the stats. Good pass yards per average. I'm not so caught up with his interception that he had. Not really, even though it was a bad one in my opinion. A good amount of yards, and he distributed the ball well, which shows that the offensive staff, the coordinator did well drawing things up. And although they didn't surpass 100 yards rushing, 80-odd yards, I believe, right, the 88 is enough to create a balance for me. Once you hit the 65 range, you're still having trouble, but 70 and up, you're able to create that balance that is so important. And another key takeaway that I'd like you to have is that I think that the pass rush from the Roughriders is going to throw the Tiger Cats out of rhythm with their pass attack. Oh, by the way, 78 yards rushing. That's still enough to create a balance, in my opinion. Sorry about that. I was trying to go off of memory while I'm tired. Anyways, the Rough Rider defense will likely be able to sack the Tiger Cats like they had the Red Blacks. They were able to sack the Red Blacks 4 times, if memory serves. And if I was the Tiger back at QB, I would be wary. So we move on to get a better. I want to look up at sacks. Yeah, we're at 4 sacks right there. I don't like. We'll consider new ways to do this slide right here. Anyways, I just think that the Rough Riders will be able to hurry up the Tiger Cats. But please take a moment to take in these stats while I describe how I see it. I was very forthright in thinking if the Red Blacks had at least an average defense that played disciplined ball, they would have edged out the Rough Riders. They would have won. Just please look at these penalties and the parity in play besides that. You may pause the video on these type of slides if you like, but we will move on to the player performances of the Tiger Cats now if you don't mind. So, This is how I will organize my slide in the future on this type of slide. If you look at the Rough Riders slide right here, if I can get you there, this is a mess. This is tight. And the left side or right side will have the image, and then they'll have a stack of information right there. Much, much cleaner, don't you think? That's how we'll do it. Anyways, but ideally I would have moving video showing plays that illustrate my points between each slide too. So it would be a longer video anyways, but more entertaining if I can understand the YouTube policy of fair use and how the CFL views it, because that's a big component too. Anyways, please note that it took Bo Levi Mitchell 50 attempts to jack those pass numbers over 300. Is mostly his receiving core's fault, I believe, when you consider they just could not separate too well, from what I saw anyways, of the field. Mitchell did spread the ball well enough, but that's mostly the coordinator. It has to be the execution with the athletes being capable, and Mitchell being able to do it as well. And he's able to do it. I don't think he's that terrible despite these bad numbers. It's just sort of, he's kind of outgunned. He doesn't have enough tools. That's how I see it. Anyways, the Tiger Cats defense plays the pass well, while the run game is neither good or bad on offense. Just average. And average isn't, it's functional. Average is functional. And they should have lost more than they had to the Stampeders, if I'm being quite honest, which is good news for the Roughriders. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, the Stampeders dominated 75% of that match. Yeah, I was not impressed with Calgary because of letting off the neck of those Tigers, but that does not mean that I overly congratulate the Tigers playing hard a quarter of the time, right? Maybe I would be more fair to say being dominant a quarter of the time or showing motivation during a small portion in the game does not make a warrior. As you can see here, the Tiger Cats were being bullied to a fair degree. Let's go ahead and bring this on home. I do not think you should gamble, but I would say that if given the choice, I would assume the Roughriders would win outright and cover. Now, I don't think that they will cover by a lot. So unlike my previous picks, you might just want to go money line. If you're just a degenerate and you're gambling, just don't do it. But if you need to, if you need to eat your meal and you can't, and you need to gamble for it, then yeah. I'd say the Roughriders cover and win. Now, I just don't think that the Roughriders will cover by much. So for your sanity, just go money line. Okay. I believe that they will be an upper quartile team despite last week's performance. And I don't think they're going to show out so well either this week. But I think across the season, you'll see the Roughriders come into form. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye for now. I'm going to take a nap before the game. I'm going to watch the game so I can evaluate better in my two reviews for the CFL. And I have to watch another game simultaneously, the UFL Championship. So just a cat nap, and everything's starting in an hour. Oh my gosh. Bye for now.